This program is brought to you by the Forbes-featured Freedom Hub Health Plan, the alternative to overpriced and restrictive insurance. The Freedom Hub Health Plan is exactly what you need. By Frequency Medicine Associates, supporting health professionals and laypersons with safe and effective advanced telemedicine-like technology that can scan and help rebalance the root causes of stress and illness. By the Planet Lockdown film, which can be seen on the Freedom Hub's Rumble channel along with many great speakers. And by The Pavilion, a 21st century community hub that brings together many of the disruptive innovations featured by the Freedom Hub, including direct pay healthcare, farm-to-table dining, TED-like Freedom Hub talks, and more. Visit your-mp.com/pavilion solution for details. Welcome, everyone. It's Wednesday, Health, Biz, and Politics again. We have a great show for you. And I'm Jim Graypeck, and I'm joined by my co-host, Charlie Froman. Actually, he's the guy that started this with the group, so maybe a little more than co-host. So if you are new to this channel, our shows, and we have some new things to share too. Let me do a screen share here. So here you are. Our website is your-mp.com. And you're going to click over here, everything that tips us towards enslavement or freedom. We're in the middle of that now. No surprises there. Your health, some great stuff. Your wealth, some great stuff. Your marketplace, and we are redoing this. It keeps getting updated. And then you're going to come over here to your media hub to learn about these, who our guests are and so forth. And oh, look at this. We have something new this week. So here are the webinars that connect us. You'll come down. We just put this up. Charlie, right? Buy me a coffee, buy us a coffee. Thank you. We've been doing this for 5 years. The group has. And basically without, it's been out of our pockets, our time, our money. So we're doing this now instead of doing subscriptions or something to just put it up there. You like what we're doing, kick in, buy us a coffee, buy us two, buy us a pizza, whatever it is. So continuing along, anyway, on Wednesday is our Health, Biz, and Politics show. And Thursday, again, is the Freedom Hub show. And then you'll see here who we have speaking, a little bit about the topic. And down below are the channels we post on, BitChute, Brighteon, YouTube occasionally, and Rumble, which has become more popular for us and many others. And also at the top, there are 2 subscribe buttons, and we recommend you just subscribe so you'll get on the mailing list. You can always hit delete, or you see something you like, you can join us. And I will stop that share and now turn it over to you, Charlie.
Thanks, Jim. And I'm not more than a co-host. We're both here cooperating for a grand venture to save the world, and healthcare in many cases is the tipping point, as COVID taught us.
Yeah.
And as folks learned why the weirdness is happening, they've seen not just COVID, but the healthcare system at large needs fixing. And our guest today is really good to take a 30,000-foot view of this fixing, because she's been part of some pretty cool ventures, in my opinion. She was with what's called CrowdHealth. And those of you who know the business some of us are in with medical cost sharing as opposed to insurance may know that there was a third way pushed over the past few years, CrowdHealth, and we'll be interested to hear from Maggie about that. Some of us also are libertarians, and among the bigger podcasters in that world, some of them, like Tom Woods and Dave Smith, even have advertisements with CrowdHealth. I've been trying to get them to switch to sharing since Forbes featured how we do it, combining with HSAs and concierge shopping help. And I've got the Republican Liberty Caucus, Liberty International endorsing us. So, we'll see who wins up in the end in the great market of free market choices. Also interesting, Maggie was with MetaBid, and Ralph Weber was an early friend of this show. And there you have the idea that you have a surgery coming up with one of your employees, you put the bid out for ambulatory surgical centers or hospitals that want the business and use that method to drive down prices. Very unique. We can discuss that, how effective are bundled prices. Is the bundling really getting to scale so we're getting a handle on prices? I know Maggie and I discussed that whole topic for today, the role of maybe a care coordinator and a concierge to help you get not just a good bundle price, but the quality, which is the gap in that whole conversation. You might get a good price, but is it a good surgeon? Is it is it right to have surgery? Even we've had those discussions. Finally, what kind of brings it here today also is her new work with Assured Partners in finding a blueprint using data on building that new network and finding good agents, which brought the title of today's program, Are Agents Buying In to These Innovations? Because, on the one hand, the easy money in healthcare is just to be a foot soldier for the cartel, whether big hospitals, big pharma, big insurers. There's lots of money to be made just pushing the status quo. You hear about these big companies getting screwed with double-digit price increases every year, and their Buka health insurance agent just says, that's just inflation, the way the market is. It blows the mind of a lot of us, especially in the Rosetta advisor camp, that CFOs, as sophisticated as they are, tolerate that dynamic. I mean, come on, there are self-funding gurus out there cutting employer costs. With sharing, we've now got the ICHRA, which is going to revolutionize group benefits. And by the way, that is promoted at Freedom Hub. So with that, Maggie, there's the intro. Say whatever you want for as long as you want, and then we'll go to Q&A as we always do for the balance of the hour.
Sounds good. Hello to everyone. I want to thank you for having me, Charles, Jim, my co-host. I feel really honored to be asked to speak on this subject. I'm really passionate about it, obviously. Charles knows. The intro of this webinar touches on my history in working with a company that was a shopping service that he mentioned, which was MetaBid. In essence, it was a cash pay resource that worked as a containment strategy for health plans. I'll build on where this has led me today as we go through my presentation. The most incredible gift that I believe that we have is choice. God's given us that, went from the beginning of creation. So I believe that, that is a very important factor in healthcare. However, with choice comes risk. So I also want to address the risk health plans may face. Now I'm in the agent world, right? By adding cost containment, shopping services, as well as the need for more agents to understand these tools and how to create a functioning plan with less risk factors. To start, the reason I personally fell in love with the direct pay market was twofold. It was the patients, my love of people, having to access care, but also the provider resources that are available. I was privileged to work with providers who want to do the right thing and have transparent pricing availability. I can't tell you how many times I was on the phone with one of these providers who wanted to join our shopping service that it brought me to tears. Anyone who has involvement in helping make changes in the US healthcare market is changing lives. I did not just wake up one day, however, and suddenly understand that I have access to all these types of resources. I believe that, my path led me to be in the right place, the right time, to have this knowledge, to be able to help people. So think about it. Being a consumer of anything takes doing the homework. Homework may be just simply something as simple as seeing an ad, right? We see ads all the time. for a sale. So let's just take something we're very simplified, like the ad for socks, right? If we look at the ad for socks and look online for the best quality of socks, the best price, you know, where they were made, the location, even something as simple as being a consumer of a sock can mean our involvement, right? So this still takes education. We look at the world of healthcare, and our imperfect minds may never fathom that health and care can be also something that we're fully involved in and fully educated in. So the real question is, how do we get there? The beauty of what the market was opening up years ago, when I first came into the picture, when I first started, and just so you know, it's by accident, because I actually went to school to be a private investigator. I didn't go to school to be in the world of insurance. Just like a lot of us, we came into this by accident, and it became something that we wanted to be involved in a bigger way. And this is something that really continues to motivate me, and new ways to introduce how this will work in health plans. Reason, the value of direct pay in health plans is endless, but the value to an individual person is powerful. An important role that I personally played, that Charles touched on, was in the coordination of care. So making sure a doctor is involved in follow-up to a surgery. However, anytime I want to point out an advocate is simply navigate an individual. And this person's not a doctor. This person's not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. There's risk involved. Just simply telling them a price and location, but you have to consider, are you able to handle the risk if something happens to the patient who goes to this provider resource? Also, how do you measure risk and how do you control risk? So number one, yes, the quality of a doctor resource is important. You can look at how many surgeries the doctor does a year. You can look at, you know, have they had any complications? However, what is the risk a new doctor who's only done 10 procedures today? Can you answer that question? I can't answer that question for you. Can a nurse hotline answer that question for you? We have to allow the patient to take on that risk with freedom of choice and full disclosure in the information relayed to them. The types of vendors and services that are being utilized as cost containment resources do not have a fail-safe, right? Alone, by themselves. They're beautiful, right? We all love them, but they do not have that fail-safe to protect the patient in this decision. So really, then what's needed if we want to introduce this as a sales agent to our groups? And that's ultimately been, you know, my journey. Pre-cert programs. I know you hate that word. Everybody hates that word, pre-cert. Anybody cringes. I've had surgery, by the way, that word makes me cringe. I didn't have to have that in my surgery, however. With true doctors, nurses may seem old school, right? It's old school and it's like a roadblock to some of the vendors that are pushing these cash price lists. However, the part that it plays in protecting the agent, the employer, and ultimately the employee, right? When having a major life-altering surgery is endless. This is risk mitigation that I mentioned from the beginning. I promise you that your best day as an agent is to hear you're saving a company thousands, right? But the worst day as an agent is to hear you're saving, but the worst day is when you hear of an employee from the group died using one of your provider resources. These stories do not happen often, but they happen. So ultimately, you're going to ask me, what's the happy ending, right? What's the unicorn? Well, the unicorn is learning as an agent to promote the open doors to direct pay markets. There are many TPAs qualified to advise agents on what vendors to put in place that support these shopping tools. I'm not saying don't address and don't educate your employer groups on these shopping tools. These are absolutely powerful. I'm saying address how to put them in a plan the correct way. Once you're acquainted with these, you'll feel safer and more equipped when you do approach clients, because they're going to ask you questions. So doors are opening. Companies are wanting more freedom for their employees above traditional networks. We see movement towards DPC and medical tourism. So it really is an open forum these days with employers. And if you're not talking about it, somebody is, right? So we want to be a part of that. So talk to the TPA that you work with, number one. Ask the question about alternative networks, cash pay, bundled pricing, however they term it, right? Ultimately, you'll find that this is now an add-on. If not for larger procedures, it's definitely being addressed in things like imaging, blood work, nationally. Saving the plan, saving employees from future costs. I currently work for a company called Assured Partners. It is a company for different types of approaches, but the approach basically really is to do more of a Sherlock Holmes, right? Approach, and finding out what the group really wants, the innovative approach in terms of, questionnaires and so forth of what the employees truly want. I've heard of groups using local cryo clinic. You can introduce that. You can, for instance, that's what I use, right? So, I try to approach, and our agents as well, try to approach each and every group with an angle of what would the employees benefit from the most. So agents have to be the ones to utilize and get to know, the employer, right? Through these questionnaires, find out what the needs of the employees are. So if you don't ask, you're not gonna, there are ambulatory and, services that have been offered to groups, but how that's utilized in the plan has to be discussed from the beginning. I used to explain this when I was a consultant for brokers, like it would be the same as me not using my extra 10% on my credit card, right? That's on the back of the credit card. Just adding something like this to a health plan is not enough. If it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So if an employer wants to introduce this type of alternative network, cash pay network, to a health plan, there has to be a type of involvement or service that educates them. Smart agents are seeing the following and using companies like AIM to create these opportunities, right? For conversations and to steer members with less risk and liability to the employer. So once again, there's an attachment point. There's a way to educate. It's exciting to be part of this in history, and yeah, there's still a cautionary tale to tell, right? Cautionary tale to tell. Agents are very interested in direct pay services and how to offer them. That's actually how I found my job at AP. I used to consult for some of their brokers and their agents. And what really stands out to me the most is that the agent should not be involved in the day-to-day of the employee having these surgeries. The account manager should not be involved. The risk is way too high. A service needs to be attached in navigating them from a doctor or nurse. If you just have an e-signature, for instance, you know, you see a lot of people just saying, okay, we're just going to have them sign off that, you know, they're approving to go here. It's not enough. Most agents would be less scared, from my viewpoint, to use these types of direct pay services if it was created within a health plan correctly. So what is the function? For me, I think we have to really define this. What is the function of a sales agent? To sell, to bring business. It should be to bring new ideas to companies, to make sure that those plans are utilized fully, not to answer calls on Sunday to Sally who needs surgery. So these are the issues that I'm seeing in the past that could be easily remedied by cooperating with TPAs in building these plans correctly. And to get back, care is who's taking care of our well-being. We as agents can educate employers on how to save money and still be showing employees they care by high quality care. But we are not nurses and we are not doctors, and we cannot navigate it like we're the price line for our groups without liability. So the future of healthcare is really bright, in my opinion, where I stand today. Creating health plans like an architect is possible. It's being done, and currently the company that I work for, AP, it's a $2.3 billion company that's buying more agencies, creating leverage, opportunities for agents to be creative in what they do best, which is selling. So take advantage of utilizing these resources, but use them in a foundation that can be created without liability. And hopefully this presentation makes sense to you as an agent, as someone who has worked in the industry for a while and has seen how important direct pay and cash pay is, because I want you to be able to utilize that to the full for your groups, but use it correctly without risk.
Jim, you want to invite questions?
Well, I'm going to start with you, Charlie, because your hand is up first. Yes,
All right.
we're open for questions, and please raise your hand. The icon's down there at the bottom somewhere, and we'll go through the line.
Excellent. And some folks struggle finding that raise hand icon. You probably can find it under the reactions tab. So I have a few questions. I'll just ask one and get back in line. Maybe I'll ask two. You mentioned the shopping tools that should be vetted, most preferably by the TPA, the third party administrator. You know, our Forbes featured brokerage uses a few tools. And there's some folks in the participating today who offer good tools on bundling. Where's your head at on the best vendors to help, you know, the nurse preferably help the patient shop for that treatment or procedure they need?
It depends on the type of plan, Charles. If you're talking about an individual, are you talking about coming from an individual, or are you coming from the employee standpoint?
Well, we sell mostly list bills to small groups and individuals, and we use the same tools for both on how to help them find well-priced, good quality specialists, hospitals, etc. Just wondering what you use or recommend.
I personally, I'm still a believer in what I helped build, which was MediBid. The reason is that the doctors, you know, on the actual site will tell you how many procedures they've done, and will start the education process for you in terms of who they are. They've been vetted, you know, in terms of their license to make sure there's no malpractice against them. And so there's a safety factor in utilizing that resource as a cash pay patient, as an individual. You know, I was a part of that process, so I feel comfortable with MediBid. Healthcare Blue Book has always been kind of, you know, a question mark to a lot of people, right? You know, how do you utilize Healthcare Blue Book? How do you keep up with what that venue offers? It is a rear view mirror to what the price was, right? Not necessarily the quality, but the price. It was what someone had received in the past in terms of cost. So true pricing, you know, would have to be from these types of resources like MediBid. I also have some other resources that you know, if somebody wants to reach out to me, some white labeled resources for employer groups that are national as well.
You want to, is that both questions, Charlie, or?
Oh, we'll follow up later. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Charles Ford.
Good morning, everyone. First off, before I begin my oration, I'm the kind of the troublemaker of the group. I'm the pepper in the garden, so to speak. So, Maggie, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. It sounds like you're being very innovative in an area that's in sad need of innovation, and I congratulate you on what you're doing. The rest of what I'm going to say very briefly is a caveat that I learned the hard way in front of very large authorities at the HHS, the Mississippi Department of Insurance, and the Alabama Department of Insurance, and the Georgia Department of Insurance. So let me share my concerns about what you're doing.
Okay.
When you say you're an agent, you have, I guess, a health insurance license?
Yes.
Okay. How did you get that health insurance license? You took a test, you got the license. What does the license say? It says you have the right to represent whom? Carriers, providers.
The carriers.
The carriers. You work for the carriers. Now, under common law, you have three duties. One is the duty of loyalty. Two is the duty of accounting, in other words, you can't take the money or get out of trust on your accounts. And three is a duty of full disclosure. Okay,
Mhm.
those are your 3 duties. Now that contract adds additional duties, so we trigger contract law as well. And that they determine part of that contract, how they're going to pay you, when they're going to pay you, how much they're going to pay you, what you got to do to get paid, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. All right, so you have common law and you have that. You also have the statutory law because you had to get a license to represent the carriers to get paid. All right, you represent the carriers, you don't represent the employer, you don't represent the employee. No, absolutely not. Also, your carrier, whether it's Aetna or it's our friends at Blue Cross Blue Shield or others, have networks. And what do they use their networks for? To drive business through the network to make money. You are their representative. Are you being disloyal and encouraging people to go outside their network? I would argue, yes, you are. Now, we can, I'm not telling you not to do it, but I'm telling you, when you do that, you are breaching your common law requirement. You may be breaching your statutory law requirement, and you most definitely are breaching your contractual law requirement. I see this as being one of the main reasons why agents will never, ever be able to lead the health field, health provision, the health marketing, the health selling, the health provision, the health application, whatever you want to call it, into a new universe. As long as we have this requirement that once you sign up as an agent, all right, I'm going to step on Charles for just a second here. We had a long conversation with one of his providers that's doing ICRA, which I call incompetently corrupt HRAs. And the reason I do that is you've got an agent providing the ICRA, okay, and that's fine. But why is he doing it? He wants to sell his services and his other policies. He's making commission. He's a commission-driven animal. That's what he's all about. Commission-driven animals don't lead to better outcomes and lower costs for the provider or the employer. As an ex-risk manager, I can tell you that right now, because their answer to everything is, hey, we can sell you a supplement, we can provide you the service, we can do this, we can do that, just pay us commission, or have you pay the premium and our provider will pay us the commission. I say all this to you to warn you that if you fall out of your duty of loyalty to the carrier, they can cut you off. Blue Cross and Blue Shield walk in and say, yeah, we're done, goodbye. You're not getting your override, you're not getting your commission, you're done. Aetna can do it, Humana can do it, all the rest can do it. And trust me, they will. We make sure they will. So, and then you have the other problem that statutorily you have a license that requires you to do full disclosure to the carrier and to act in a manner that is consistent and loyal to the way they do business. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody on the broadcast today. And again, Maggie, thank you for all that you're doing. And
Sure.
I think you're definitely a heroine, and I have the utmost regard and respect for you and your efforts.
Well, I definitely appreciate, coming from my background, the aspect that you're coming from. I have been privileged, as Charles mentioned, to work for Ralph Weber, who created health plans with this in mind, right? The type of health plans that are created, for employer groups. Yes, I work for AP. Yes, I have to answer to carriers for certain groups. I do agree with you 100% on that, Charles. However, there are through TPAs that can be created with addendums that allow for these direct pay without me being in a situation where I am in conflict with a carrier. And I feel very confident that there are groups that are open to these types of health plans. And currently, I'm in motion with one of those. So I would love to learn more. I'm always one of those people, like I told you, I'm still a baby boomer in terms of, we all are, and learning and growing with the changes in healthcare. So, everything that I learn, like you said, in terms of ethically doing things correctly, it's why I continually have moved to where I am at this current time, is to be in a situation where I can truly help people in the fullest way possible, and feel comfortable when I put my head on my pillow at night, right? So, and that's the most important thing to me, is that when I go to an employer group, I can offer them a full spectrum of really what they desire. What they desire may not be what you and I desire necessarily, which is sometimes the case. It's once again choice, and so That's why I love what we're doing with Assured Partners, in that we're doing the questionnaires to the employer, to the employees at times, really diagnosing what their needs are from the core. And then if I can be creative, I can. And that's where I shine. But ultimately, yeah, sometimes it falls back to I have to give them things that maybe I don't believe in, and as an agent. However, it just takes continued education. I love that we have this forum. I love that this is a forum that I can share continually with my employer groups. And I'm excited about being able to do that.
If I can add on to that, Mr. Ford, we appreciate your peppery comments, because that stimulates thought, and we're really into that as disruptors, as innovators, because Maggie's comment about addressing risk and accepting it and mitigating it is important as we make the system better. Charles, I wonder if your critique applies to the vast majority of group plans that aren't using BUCAs, that are self-funding and maybe a carrier for reinsurance or stop loss policies, number one. And number two, a lot of licensed health insurance agents no longer are selling insurance, like myself, because of networks. I find them unethical. I mean, what good is insurance if you can't see the doctor you want when you get cancer or heart disease? With sharing, which we prefer, you're a cash patient, which means you can go wherever you want worldwide. There's the tourism angle. And with ICRAs, yeah, we're getting paid commission, but price serves as a signal in a free market. So the horrible prices that people are subject to from insurance has brought in sharing, which costs less, but still they budget in a nice commission. And so we're getting paid to sell something that's cheaper for the employee and better because there's no limits on where they can go. And with the ICRA, that's just to accommodate the sick people who we don't want to get caught up in the pre-existing condition phase in. They'll suffer with Obamacare, but at least it's guaranteed issue. And some employers can offer both the Obamacare policy and the sharing, so that during the phase-in window, they're protected. Finally, as lobbyists for National Health Federation, we have a proposal that's really exciting for a lot of people to replace licensing with a competitive certification model, where Maggie and I, and maybe Sydney and some others, can start a trade association offering certification. We register with the state, and the only thing the government does is prosecute fraud. And we could create ever new certifying organizations with branding to educate the consumer to seek out our certified members, because we uphold a better ethic. Charles, you could join us. You would be the pepper, even making our certifying criteria better. But I appreciate your facts and history. That's something to consider in the risk: common law, contractual law, and statutory law. So I always thank you, Charles.
Let me make one more brief comment in response. I agree with what you said. The transition the agent has to make, they have to decide, whose master are they going to serve? Are they going to serve the Blue Cross and the Aetnas and the Humanas of the world? Or are they going to go a different route? And right now there is some limitations in licensing, so you just have to deal with that. But I think there's a big difference between doing an ICRA exclusively, like you're doing, and then supplementing it with individual policies for the needs of the employees. And I think that's a big difference than saying, okay, I'm going to represent Blue Cross and Blue Shield on this group, but I'm going to do an ICRA over here. That's a conflicted interest, and that will get you in trouble with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and possibly the state regulators as well. But if you say, okay, I'm walking away from that, I'm done, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm doing this exclusively, and I'm going to do it in the format you laid out, I think you're good to go, and everything's fine.
Well, it's going to be in your good graces, Mr. Ford. Go ahead, Jim.
Sydney, you're up next.
Hey guys, good to see your faces. Thanks, Maggie, for the presentation. It was great to hear your perspective. couple of comments slash questions. So Charles, thanks for pointing out, the concern of around agents who have feet, I guess, in both worlds, the self-funded insurance world versus the ICRA kind of alternative path that's not doing insurance business. The latter is the world where I and my company have posted our or laid our roots. I'll give you just a quick background on me. So I built a company called Mishi. We're a marketplace for direct care, direct pay services, cash pay. Initially marketed ourselves as a marketplace, but quickly realized that doctors aren't so comfortable with the concept of marketplace. What they are comfortable with is the concept of a network. And so market yourself as a network, and potentially a discount network, similar to what you would see in the realms of dentistry or vision, where limited health benefits has been a reality for a long time. And things, positioning yourself as that type of network makes more sense, especially when that network pays them immediately and there's no uncertainty in terms of AR, et cetera. So I guess my question, or the thought, is the fact that there are agents who are promoting these alternative access channels and frankly alternative health plans, if you will, is awesome to hear, because distribution is a big challenge in any business. I feel like it's been interesting to, as we've looked at the dental discount plans and the chiro discount plans and those kind of discount plans that have come before us, it's been interesting to see their distribution roadmaps, or their distribution playbooks, if you will, positioning themselves with different benefits companies, and also as a part of a supplemental benefit for different self-funded employers. Like, I think that's a very interesting route. But I also do believe that this concept of the individual agent who could be pushing a plan or a network is super interesting. And I guess my biggest question to you, Maggie, is what type of incentives, or what is the compensation structure look like for someone who is directing patients or employers to a company like Medibid, or a company like Mishi, who's offering these discount slash savings plans that aren't doing insurance business? We pass payment directly onto the doc. Payment is made in full, or we're passing through the cost of the rendition plus reasonable overhead. So not insurance business in the eyes of most states. So we don't run into, or agents wouldn't run into the concerns that Charles mentioned, but it's still, it's an opportunity, and we're working towards identifying innovative ways to distribute the health plan, and the integrated health plan that kind of bundles in everything from virtual primary care all the way up through surgery in an ambulatory setting. So as we start to get more vocal about this new direction that we've taken, and that has shown a fair amount of demand, I'm just curious to see what do you think would be the best way to engage the burgeoning agent population to help support an offering like ours?
That's a great question, and yeah, I'm excited because I do have an answer for you. I don't have an answer for everything, but I do have an answer for this one. There are so many capabilities that you have as a business. What you're doing is beautiful, by the way. So congratulations on what you're doing. I'm very proud of you. This is something that you have to introduce to stop loss carriers from the ground up. You need to create relationships and network with stop loss as a business owner. And then from there, you're creating a way to reduce cost to self-funded health plans. This is something that agents love, because guess what? I, as an agent, if you're reducing my cost to the health plan that I'm bringing to an employer, guess what it does for me? I work on commission. So a group may say, if you reduce my cost this year by X amount, I will give you this commission versus this commission. I win. You win, I win, the group wins, everybody wins. So there is a lot to be said about being able to introduce what you do to a group.
And I guess so thank you for that. Appreciate the
Sure.
comments. Yeah, it's a lot at stake here. So trying to,
Yes, absolutely.
but so would you say that working with or partnering with stop loss carriers is a prerequisite, or could the health plan, which is essentially, a channel of predefined, pre-negotiated, discounted rates with independent physicians and facilities, like would or could that be enticing enough to engage agents representing self-funded employers, or do we need the stop loss? I guess that's the question. Because bundling it shouldn't be that big of an issue, but the idea is, just to give you a sense, like the thought is that by honing in on just the health plan, we're able to provide that benefit, at the end of the day, that's what it is, to a number of different through a number of different channels, agents being one of them. But from my perspective, I see the nature of benefits and health benefits evolving, and the nature of channels through which we access health benefits evolving, and the nature of employment is evolving, and the nature of community is evolving. I've been seeing a lot of different types of communities, whether they be digital communities or sports communities, starting to offer certain types of health benefits.
Yes.
Look at Amazon, what Amazon's doing with Amazon Clinic, adding in their RX Pass, adding that into Prime. That's the future, I feel, of consumer, the supply side of the consumer world, where they're trying to bundle in a bunch of services and adding additional benefits to their packages to sink the hook. That's our goal, to be able to provide this plan, and then provide the rails with which these different communities, these different benefits providers could start to fund some of that care. Like, that's the future that we're rowing towards. So the idea is that it goes beyond just the employer realm and starts to go into some consumer type, leak into some consumer type opportunities. So sorry for the word vomit there, but it sounds like you're saying both. I appreciate that, because I agree. If you have any recommendations, or I would love to connect with you offline. So
yeah, absolutely.
let's just plan on that. Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, no, I would love to navigate you, because you're in a good place to set yourself up in terms of being able to offer this. I'm not a box plan person, right? I'm really kind of against that, because every group is different. Everybody's different, right? We all have personalities. Every employer group has a personality. So we have to cater to that as an agent. But it is always good to have a relationship with stop loss, to get them to know you, to get them to know your capabilities, so that right away you can be part of a plan that's in play.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. And that makes sense. Sure. Trying to reduce the number of point solutions that y'all have to work with and contend with. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
You're muted, Jim.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. That's weird. Anyway, yeah, before you, Charlie, I want a quick question. Maggie, what you mentioned example or something about, selling or representing something that you don't believe in, right? That comes up. And I'm curious if you can give me an example of that. Give us an example.
Yeah, I mean, you go into these small mom and pop shops, right? We call them mom and pop shops, but it's small new business. And they want to offer a carve out because they can't afford to pay for individual policies for everyone. So what they want are the Aetnas and the Blue Crosses of the world, right? I cringe, but I also educate at the same time. I can't give judgment because that's not, my call. I can't tell the employer what to do. I can give them options and I can give them windows of opportunity for the future as they grow. So my job is to continually educate them as they grow as an employer, as a new business, to create something that truly makes sense, that has longevity, that has legs, right? That's long-term, that's going to create the retention that they need in a business to keep employees happy, and not the Aetnas and Blue Crosses of the world.
So, and as Charles said, if you push too hard on that, they might push you out.
Exactly. So it's really just baby steps. It's walk before you run.
Okay.
And I'm learning that it's not easy for me. I came from a background, I'm a very German girl. And, it's black and white. It's like, and so it's very hard for me, even, I'm an older person. I'm still learning to bite the tongue.
Sure.
And really just educate, walk before they run. You can get an employer group to make the right choice. You just have to create the relationship first.
Sure.
And then over time, you have the ability and the window to be able to help them make the right decisions.
The beauty of sales.
Correct.
Charles, you're next.
In chat, I put the competitive certification campaign. If folks just want to click that link, it'll open in your browser and you can send our email. It's really important. This is kind of a side issue for commercial health entrepreneurs to be political, because what's that old saying? You may want to avoid politics, but government doesn't want to avoid you. And it's not enough just to make money doing good, which there's plenty of money to be made doing good in this health cartel. But we do need all hands on deck for lobbying and grassroots, because a lot of the barriers are political. So there's a limit to what you can do. Also, medical cost sharing has been mentioned a lot in this Zoom, and I want to share my screen and let folks know at my Substack, I just wrote a defense of sharing in the face of a lot of media hits on sharing. The hits are very unfair. Not that there isn't abuse in sharing, it's the same kind of fraud or guilt of omissions that happens with health insurance or any other product. And the attorneys general in all 50 states do have power to deal with fraud with sharing or insurance or any other good or service. So it is a falsehood to say sharing is unregulated. They're not regulated by insurance commissioners because it's not insurance. So I'll put that in the chat. I hope folks enjoy my Substack. I do push the envelope. I'm involved in a lot of different areas of healthcare. But Sydney, I'll push back on you a bit too. There's a fixation among Rosetta type higher quality advisors with self-funding and stop loss. And I believe with the ICRA, the individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement that Trump expanded, that is the game changer, because it's going to allow sharing in group plans, because sharing is not group, it's individual. So when the employees leave the company, they'll get to keep the sharing plan. And sharing is nothing more than old-time mutual aid. It's the way benefits were provided before insurance a century ago. It's like a credit union compared to a bank. And I think, and stop loss has liability for the company if there's a few cancer patients. Sharing really is professionalizing, especially with Zion and Sedera, the secular options that our brokerage promotes. So those are the two things I have to say. Get political, defend sharing because they are being targeted by insurance commissioners, because that's what happens when you have success. You create a target on your back because you're hurting profits of the incumbent bucas. They don't like that competition. And that's what government is there for. It's not to help you, it's to help incumbents, special interests, screw their competitors. I'm a longtime lobbyist. That's what government is. And to look at ICRAs and sharing, not just self-funding, as the innovative place where direct contracting is happening, and partnering with great bundlers like Sydney and others. Any comments in here, Maggie, on my verbal vomit there? I like that term, Sydney.
You know that I was part of CrowdHealth, and I helped create their care advocacy. Yeah, there, in terms of the risk, I was just mentioning some things. However, the beauty of and the power that an individual has when a health event happens, I can't even completely verbalize. My personal experience was a true personal experience. I use healthcare sharing to the full in terms of I need to go have imaging, correct? I need to see what's going on. I need to have a surgery. Guess what happens? That doctor calls me on a Sunday and says, I hope you're okay and you're ready for your surgery on Monday. These are the types of experiences direct pay patients are experiencing. The type of experience I had when I went through my health event, and the type of experience I want others to have. So can agents, let's get full circle, can agents, true insurance agents, promote direct pay? Yes, they can, but it is a process. We have to educate the employer groups. We have to take the time, and we have to care.
And I'll follow up on that. I agree that we're up against a fairly powerful and powerful incumbent, and I think it all comes down to power in numbers, and supporting each other in these alternative access models through dialogue like this. So kudos to you guys for continuing to provide a platform for all of us to collaborate and share in this dialogue. I learn something every single time I come on and join these. So thanks again. But yeah, I agree. It's there will always be the finger pointing at the new solution that is going to bring change that certain people want, but others don't, especially when it comes down to cutting into profits for the bigger incumbents, the big daddies. So I think that's to be expected. It just is a matter of spinning it back to them and putting it, like you pointed beautifully, Charles, like it's nothing different than what insurance carriers are doing, in terms of if you want to call it misappropriating or not funding care that should be funded based on certain rules. It's the same hit. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So we're coming up, thank you. We're coming up on the hour. Maggie, if you'd like to give make a closing statement and maybe tell people how they can reach you.
Yes, well, I do appreciate everyone listening to me. I know there's some pain points in hearing me, come from the agent aspect of things. However, I do want you to understand that I still work from a consultant standpoint in terms of when I go to groups, when I talk to you, in terms of how to help employer groups. You can reach me at maggie.beckley@assuredpartners.com. And anyone that emails me, I'd love to meet with you and see if I can help you more. You know, I do have access to white label resources that are really beautiful in you know, the space that Charles and everyone are in. And you know, I want people to be able to utilize those. So if you need any resources, just let me know.